Great stuff. I'm live. Give it a few seconds so that a few people can join us. Great. So, hey guys, we'll be having a live session today speaking to Mr. Tondi, who's a property entrepreneur. As I had mentioned before, we'll be doing a series of these interviews slash Q&A sessions slash conversations with other property entrepreneurs, people who are in the industry, who are active in the industry, regardless of what they do in the industry, whether it be a lawyer, bond originator, other property investors. The intention for these sessions are for us to learn as much as possible, and we're back here again today to do exactly that. Today I'm going to be joined by Tondi. Tondi is a real estate entrepreneur who is working at Black Gold Properties, a real estate agency that's here in Johannesburg, operating within the Johannesburg region, right? So he's going to be joining me just now. I see Tondi just joined us, and so that's the intention of today's session, is for us to learn as much as possible from his experience so that we can all eventually get to a point where we are investing in property, building that generational wealth that we all want for ourselves, right? Property is an investment vehicle that has been around since before we were born. It's an investment vehicle that is going to be here till the day we die and will continue to be around after we are dead. So it really is a good way to build wealth that is going to be generational. So Tondi, I see you've joined me here. Can I just request that you request to join the live, right? So guys, if you have any questions or any comments, feel free to hit up the comment section. I'll try answer the questions. Me and Tondi will try answer the questions at the end of the session. If we're unable to reach your questions, feel free to DM me. And then I will answer your questions. And if I'm unable to, I can refer you to Tondi if he's willing also to answer some of your questions. So the company that he has is Black Gold Properties. It's a real estate investment company that is operating here in Johannesburg. So if you are looking to purchase a property or looking to sell a property in and around Johannesburg, make sure you hit them up and see if their solutions are able for you. Okay, it's not allowing me to request. Okay, let me see if I do this. Okay, is it allowing you now, Tondi? I think. Go live with. Let me just search. Add. Okay, I'm waiting for you to accept. Great. So guys, if you have any questions for him, or if you have any questions for me, do feel free to drop them in the comment section. It really is going to be an interactive session, and I hope that it's going to provide a lot of value to everyone today. Good day, sir. Good evening. Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. So just if you could please briefly introduce yourself to our audience who are with us this evening.
All right, guys. So I'm Tondi Sadiki, and I'm a real estate entrepreneur. My main business is an estate agency called Black Gold Real Estate.
All right, then. So cool, guys. There you had it. It's a real estate agency that's here in Johannesburg, right? Which areas do you specialize in?
So we focus mainly in the north, eh?
Okay.
Yeah, the north of Joburg. No, but I mean, it's areas that we kind of need to penetrate, right, as Black people.
Okay.
So I felt that it was necessary to make sure that it's in
Definitely
the well looked after areas where, not to make it racial, but where white people ordinarily would try and preserve the wealth of the area. So that's the area that I feel like Black people should be entering.
Okay, all right. How did you get started in investing in property, and then maybe you can link it to what was the push, the motivation for you to specifically focus on the high end market, the property industry?
So basically, I would say it's an ongoing thing, man. I think it started when I was a lot younger.
Okay.
I always had a bit of a thing for property. My dad used to buy those. I don't know if you remember those magazines, Garden and Home.
Yes, 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 yes,
Yeah,
yes. They're actually still around.
is it?
Yeah.
I'm actually I don't even look at that stuff anymore. But my dad was he was
Yeah.
very into that, and I always spend a lot of time just browsing, seeing the. I don't remember. Do you remember those big ads that Pam Golding used to do with
Pam
the gold
Golding, yeah.
gates? So that's where it all started. And after I studied, so I studied internal audit, did my honors, worked in corporate for a year, then tried my hand at a few other odd businesses that didn't really work out too great. And then I got into a conversation with a family friend who's actually very successful in the real estate industry.
Mm-hmm.
And he encouraged me to look into it. And the nice thing is that on my part, the love for real estate was already there. So I
Mm.
think he just nudged me in the right direction and told me how he started. And that's when I decided to go join one of the big agencies. And yeah, that's where it began.
So you joined one of the agencies and then so you worked there and then branched out basically on your own.
Yeah, exactly. I spent 3 years there. I mean, I learned as much as I possibly could,
Mm-hmm.
or rather, I'll say as much as they're willing to let you learn, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they always want to preserve
Their
the
talent.
the
Yeah.
secret to their success, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So I felt that the only way for me to kind of come up with my own recipes to branch out and really experience uh, real estate for myself and running a real estate agency by myself.
Mm. I think
Yeah.
one thing that I've heard a lot from people who are interested in any business, in fact, is that sometimes they never want to actually go work out there in corporate or in any form of employment. They just want to start their business. But I always feel like it's so important to go work and get that experience of the working environment and knowing operations, how things are supposed to work, as compared to you just jumping into the deep end. Because imagine if you had started your real estate agency without actually those 3 years experience. Like you would have, yes, you would have learned a lot of things along the way, but don't you feel like also you would have made stupid mistakes that could have been avoided if you, or maybe made bad decisions just because you
Yeah.
were just inexperienced, purely because you're inexperienced.
Yeah, well, I completely agree with you. And I don't know, a lot of business people always say that it's always better to learn and make mistakes with someone else's money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in my case, it wouldn't have made sense for me to invest so much money into starting an agency with no experience. I mean, can you imagine from an operational perspective how
Mm.
much money you lose? Because I mean, as an agent working for a company, you don't really see the overheads, you don't see the costs of operations. And it's probably the easiest place to mismanage money in an estate agency operations.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, so in my opinion, I think it's imperative that every person that goes into business spend a few years in another company that does what you're interested in,
Mm.
understand the basis of the business, understand more than just running a business, understand how to deal with people because business is people. And
Yeah.
if you just start and you don't get to experience, you know, that office politics that they always speak of.
Yes, 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 yes.
It is imperative that you experience that so you know how to handle it, how to handle conflict, how to resolve conflict between other people, and basically just the basis of business and
Mm.
networking. You will
It
not
is
get
people.
anywhere else. Yeah.
It really is people because one thing also, if your business is not going to exist or survive without the people that are around you, without your customers, and if you don't understand how to handle people and handle people's different emotions and their characters as individuals, then the chances of you succeeding in your business are going to be really slim. And I like that you actually mentioned that. It leads me very well, I guess, to saying. What do you think from working with people in real estate? Because I think there's a misconception of saying people think of property investing as no, you buy the property, you rent it out to tenants. You just sell, you buy and you sell the property, not
Mm.
realizing that when you're buying and you're renting it out, there's tenants that you have to manage. Those are people
Sorry.
You have to think about, are you renting it out to a student, or are you renting it out to a family, or are you renting it out to, like, there's going to be based on the type of person you're renting it out to, there's going to be different risks associated with the
Exactly.
individual. And if you are not able to think about those risks, and if you are not able to understand the different people that you could potentially be renting to, then you completely gonna go off. Like, you're really gonna go off. What's your
Exactly.
experience been so far as in within real estate, as an agent? What has been your experience in terms of managing tenants?
So that is probably the hardest part of the business, to be honest.
Yeah,
The reason I say that, like I said, for me, it's very much about getting Black people to understand how the property sector works.
sure.
And oddly enough, Black tenants always make majority of the bad tenants. So it's kind of sad.
Explain.
So not necessarily as like in saying that they'll mistreat your property or all that,
Of course.
but from a financial perspective, in terms of credit, we tend to be over indebted. So when agents go and do credit checks, for example, most of us don't have good credit records.
Yeah,
That's
that
the
is true.
first issue. So that's the first issue we experience. Secondly, for me, and I feel like it's very situational. For me, because I'm Black, I think Black people have an expectation that I will be ridiculously cheaper because I'm Black.
Okay.
So in
So
that
they want a
regard,
discount, basically. They want a discount because of the color of your skin.
exactly.
Okay.
So for me, it's always a bit of a struggle, man, when you deal with both landlords and tenants. The tenants expect you to do a favor for them because, I mean, they're Black. The landlord wants you to do them a favor as well because, I mean, he's Black. And for me, I feel like that's where we kind of have to fix that. And the only way to fix that is to educate Black people on the actual costs of running a property. I mean, when you rent from me, I'm paying my levies, I'm paying rates and taxes. If you're lucky, I'm paying your water as well. Your only
Yeah.
expense is rent and electricity.
If you're really lucky, you're paying your water.
if you're lucky, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I've heard cases where you will pay a lot more. You'll pay water, you'll pay electricity, you'll pay affluent. And if you rent in estates, for example, some landlords will have you pay the levies because they just like, it doesn't make financial sense for them if they're not living on the property to pay the levies. So
And
from
I
a
know
managing
that.
perspective, so I'm saying from a managing perspective, that's the kind of stuff that you deal with, and that's the headache that people don't realize they take on when they invest in property.
Have you experienced a lot of defaults in terms of, because, like, obviously dependent on the area in which someone is renting, there are a lot of defaults from what you've experienced in the north compared to maybe real estate agents that you've heard of in other areas? Rental defaults.
Yes, naturally so. So, in fact, let me do this. Let me dial back the situation a bit,
Okay.
the conversation, and say when we speak of property investing, you as a property investor need to realize what is your model. What kind of investing are you trying to do? Are you investing for rental yield? Are you investing for capital appreciation? Are you investing just for preservation? Like just to say, my money is safe, it's in a property.
Okay.
And I think when you look at it like that, it becomes easier to separate the two and to separate the different situations that you'll encounter under each of those investments.
Okay.
So the first one I'll deal with is when you invest purely for the sake of rental yield. The trick with rental yield is that you kind of have to invest in the lower end of the market.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, that's the same place where you get the highest number of defaults.
Yeah. The higher the risk, the higher the return.
So exactly. So in if you want a very good rental yield, you'll probably be investing in properties for under $1 million. Generally between $500,000 and $1 million. And that's where you expect the tenants not to pay like too much.
Yeah.
And automatically by doing that, you've kind of pegged yourself with the low income earners.
Mm-hmm. True.
And I think what we experienced during COVID, for example, is that the low income earners were the first to have financial woes, because those are the people that live hand to mouth.
Yeah.
And then to answer your question, that's where I experienced defaults. They were the first, literally, when they announced lockdown,
Mm-hmm.
I think all the 3 low-end properties that I was dealing with defaulted.
Yeah.
All
Do you
3.
feel, do you at any point feel like they were just taking chances, or do you?
Naturally, I think what people thought, they said, you know, I've been locked down. They know I'm not going to work. If I don't pay, no one is going to flip out. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think they were like, no. There will be an understanding and there will be a lot of sympathy towards the situation. But I think what the government also did is that they kind of made it hard for a lot of investors, because for the duration of lockdown, you were not allowed to evict.
Yeah. You weren't allowed to even start the process, right?
Exactly. So now you had people in lockdown for 6 months, not paying rent. Now, Nhlaka, as the property investor, you must be out of pocket every month, because the bank, at the end of the day, as much as they did give people like
The rent
breaks and stuff,
concessions,
holidays, like payment holidays, what the bank was doing was not actually a favor to you, because they
it
were
was
doing it as
just
a loan.
it was building up that interest in the long term, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Because they said, no, we'll give you the payment holiday. Consider it a loan. So now for 6 months, you took that loan. If your bond repayment was 5,000 a month, now you're sitting with 30,000, probably plus 20% interest on that to repay it. So you are out of...
Not to mention the levies, and not to
Exactly.
mention the rates and taxes.
And that's the thing. The levies, the rates and taxes, those are not forgiving. I don't think any managing agent cared that somebody got retrenched, you're not getting paid. For them, it was just like, you are still getting your
recognize that there's COVID and people aren't paying rent, but you just need to pay.
The levy you have to pay, because I mean, how are you going to get your services? How are you going to get your water? How are you going to get electricity? So you didn't really have a lot of leeway, and that's what we experienced a lot during lockdown. A lot of defaults. I mean, to date, I'm still dealing with tenants that are playing catch up.
And I think it really does become difficult at that point to when you're playing catch up, because even though maybe the person really did lose their income, but now the issue is you didn't pay rent for, let's say, 3 months, and let's say your rent is 6,000 rand. How do you really catch up a rental of 6,000? Do you now come to an agreement to say, okay, I'm going to pay 8,000 rand a month, or is it going to be a lump sum payment? People just generally didn't have the money, and I do recognize that it was a difficult position. And I've heard of a few cases where when the tenant was requested to provide evidence of a decrease in salary, or like no salary at all, then the tenants would fail to provide that evidence, showing that that tenant was probably taking chances when they heard that there's rent, there's concessions being provided to the banks. So my landlord is fine. I don't need to pay him. So then when you need to provide the evidence now you can't get your employer to say they've reduced your salary when they haven't.
No, exactly. And I think that was the main struggle, right? Where, like I said, the low income earners, if you're going to invest in low income, I mean, not low income, but if you're going to invest in the lower demographic, lower income, the bottom end of the market, is those guys live hand to mouth. Already rent for them is a stretch. So how do you catch up on rent if you're already living hand to mouth?
It really is difficult. I think it brings that conversation to say, as Black people, we shouldn't really rely on that one source of income, to try to diversify our incomes, to have that extra source of income, because then whenever situations like this do happen, because the next time it might not be a pandemic, it might just be that the company that you are working for is going under because of mismanagement at a level that is way beyond you. To be able to have that extra source of income to say, even though I'm missing out on my salary, or it's being cut, or I'm being retrenched, at least I know I can afford my lifestyle. At least I know I can afford my expenses for the month, or just rent and food at a minimum.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for me also, I think that's where it became apparent our saving habits are
Mm.
horrible. And as a property investor, actually, I feel like we are always in the best position to save money. And you save money when you buy, technically speaking. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
going to buy a property, I always encourage people, get an excess bond. Whatever free income that you get, whatever, like,
Dump it in there.
just put everything in there. Firstly, it will decrease your interest payments,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, you still have access to it. So during the COVID 3 months, let's say that you weren't getting paid, you
Yeah.
could have actually paid yourself a salary out of your access bond, and you would have been
That
fine.
that that would that, I think that takes a level of discipline.
It does.
And hey, can you hear me? Hey, I think I lost you there for a second. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm saying that takes a level of discipline that yeah, it really takes a lot of discipline to be able to see that excess money and not use it for reckless things. Because when things are great, when things are great and you earning your salary and your bonuses and the overtimes and all these things, the need to save is not really apparent. And if you are someone who's saving in that excess bond, something I've seen, someone actually consults with me about, to say, listen, I have 40,000 rands in my excess, in my excess bond account, and I really think I need to go on holiday. I'm tired from work and I really need to go on holiday. What do you think I should do? I'm like, listen, at the end of the day, it's your money. I can't tell you what to do with your money. But
Mm.
there's a reason why in which you put it there. And what's the reason to go on holiday? If the reason was to go on holiday, then sure. But I ideally wouldn't think that you're putting money in your excess bond as savings for holiday. So it really does come with a lot of discipline and that financial literacy and education for us to be responsible enough to save money and save it for a rainy day.
No, exactly. So that is the big deal. A mentor of
Yeah.
mine, actually, he he likes encouraging people to save 10% of your property's worth in
Mm,
your excess bond.
mm.
So if your property is worth 1 million rand, he rates you should have 100,000 rand in that excess bond for a rainy day. And when I mean a rainy day, I mean right now we're sitting at prime is what, 7%.
Yeah.
A year and a half ago, prime was at what, 9.
Like what was it, 10? I think.
It was just under 9. Yeah, I think it was about 9.75.
Okay.
Now we're sitting at 7. What happens then? Now you know how we are in our spending habits, because
Mm-hmm.
now you've got a bit of relief from your bond. Now that money that you normally used to pay for your bond, you've taken out and you've assigned it to a different line item on your budget.
Mm.
And then they hike up the interest rate again.
Eesh.
What then?
And like what happened what was it, probably about 15 years ago in South Africa, when interest rates were about 17, 18%.
Exactly, where they just skyrocket. Are
Mm.
you then in a position as an investor to say that I have I have hedged any
Mm.
possible loss that I
I
might
can
encounter?
afford this property.
No, exactly. And I think a lot of people just they feel like it's just buying a nice place, getting a tenant, and that's it.
Putting them there,
But
then it's fine.
and it's far from it, far from it. And I think that's Black Gold Properties' objective, is to educate.
Yeah. So
And
someone's asking quickly a question to say, what is that excess bond that we're speaking of? Could you maybe just break it down for someone who's not sure what that is?
all right, fine. So you get a normal bond, and a normal bond would be a bond where you can't access that money. So once the money is paid into that bond account, you can't touch it, you can't remove it, you can't move it. An
Mm.
excess bond allows you to put more money than necessary into your bond repayments, but at the same time, it allows you to be able to extract that money when and as you need.
Yeah. So basically, if you choose to use it as a savings account, if you have a bond payment of 5,000 rands and you're choosing to put an additional 1,000 rands per month inside, at the end of the year you'd ideally have 12,000 rands in that excess as an excess amount for you to withdraw, and you can withdraw that amount of money if you need to, or you can keep it in there to basically lower the interest that you'll be paying back to the bank. In essence, that's what it is.
I was about to say, and the added benefit of you paying that additional 1,000 is that with every month that goes by, your interest payment is less and less and less.
Yes. And what people I think don't realize sometimes is that when you have the interest that you'll be paying to the bank over the long term, is over the 20 years of your bond, is like the equivalent, if not more, than the actual value of the house that you purchased. It is like so much interest, and if you don't find a way to lower that interest, you'll end up paying for your house that's 500,000 rands, and you'll pay interest that's 600,000 rand in total. You just paid 1.1 million for a house that costs, well, 20 years ago, 500,000 rands. I think that's the increased, significantly increased benefits of putting your money and saving it in there. So what have you identified from, as an agent, from first-time buyers? Like, what are some of the mistakes that you are identifying that people are making?
The first is we always want to buy. Let me put it like this, actually. We overpay. We tend to overpay. And the reason we overpay is because we don't know the information that's at hand. There are so many tools, so many products that you can use from people like your Lightstone Properties that will give you a property report. Windeed will give you a property report. So you always basically have an idea of what things are selling for in the area. So I was actually, during the week, I was actually going through a few property reports, and I noted that in terms of record sales in all the estates and complexes that I'm working in, the highest paying people, time and time again, are Black people. And that's because we don't have the adequate information to go into a negotiation and say, no, why am I paying 3 million when the average in this estate is 2.6? So we go in there, we overpay. I mean, the bank is not going to come and correct you and say, oh, no, it's like, you made a mistake. No, for them, they just look, okay, fine. If we give this guy the bond at 3 million, he can pay it off. And if he fails, it's fine. We'll still sell the place and, well, our money is safe.
Yeah. I would say that just because the bank is saying that they're going to go do a valuation on the house, they're not going to go. They're only going there basically to see, firstly, does the house exist, and is it a reasonable price based on the area? Because if you are in an area where properties are selling for, let's say, 2.6 million, and then someone is trying to sell you a property for 8 million, then the bank will be like, no, China, that's not going to work. But if it's within the same ballpark region of 3 million, then they'll be okay with it because you can afford to pay it back. And the more they give you as a loan, the more interest they get.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I always say also, you must remember, property, as much as we put value in the product, like the bricks, the cement, and that's how they come up with the price, property is very much market driven. And what I mean it's market driven, I mean you and me decide what property is worth.
Yeah.
Because when you buy, if you go there and you buy and you say, no, I don't understand why I'm paying 3 million. I'm going to pay 2.5, and that's my offer. And somebody takes it. It now becomes harder for everyone in that complex to overprice.
2.3 million. Yeah.
Yeah. So now all of a
the
sudden,
market value becomes 2.5 million realistically.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing that we don't understand, that we actually have the power as consumers to dictate what the market says. Because I mean, if you're just going to go put your house at 3 million, we have the power to then, as consumers, say, no, we don't see value at 3 million. This is where we see value. And I always say, as Black agents, that's where I feel like we are not playing our role. Like I said, we are the ones in a position to basically dictate if the market is working for us or not. So if I'm just going to take you as my client and make you overpay, I've shot you in the foot, and indirectly I've shot myself in the foot.
Yeah.
Because now I'm sitting with inflated prices that no one else is willing to pay. When you decide to sell, you're not going to get your price. I've lost a lifelong client. You've lost money through your bond now, because now you need to pay out of pocket to cover whatever the deficit is. So for me, that's the kind of education that I want people to understand, that just because it's certain, it doesn't always warrant the price you are paying for it. You need to
Definitely.
do a bit more in-depth research, understand what's sold, what hasn't sold, understand what the capital appreciation, and that's a big thing also for property investors. When you buy in an area, do you know how much the capital appreciation in the area is? What's the rate? Is it growing at 4%? Is it stagnant? And a lot of us always feel like, oh, you know, our first property can be worth 500,000 Rand. I'm going to go buy in Halfway Gardens.
Yeah.
Because I can afford Halfway Gardens. I know there's a demand for tenants there. But now your money is sitting there for 10 years and you get 20,000 Rand more than you paid when you decide to sell. Was that a good investment? Probably not.
Goes back to the reason in which you are purchasing. I guess going back to, are you purchasing for rental yields or are you purchasing for capital appreciation? Because if you are selling it, let's say for 20,000 rands more, however the rent, but like you are profiting, flip like 3,000 rands a month on it, maybe it might be worth it.
Exactly.
But if you were barely breaking even, maybe even out of pocket, and then 5 years down the line, you're selling it for 20,000 rands more than what you purchased it for, then definitely was not a good investment.
No, exactly. Your return on investment probably wouldn't be great. Your money probably would have done better in a money market account or unit
Yeah.
trust or whatever else.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think that's our main struggle, that I try and encourage people to think about the decision they're making. I mean, if you're a single guy, why would you go on and cry about, no, but I get more value for money in the West Rand. I can buy a house with 3 beds, 2 bathrooms, a garage in the West Rand for R1 million, as opposed to, let's say, a 2-bedroom apartment in Morningside for R1 million, where you know that the capital appreciation in Morningside is not about to stop.
It's not the same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's all about understanding your reasons for buying and understanding where your money is going to work for you. Because I mean, the reason.
I always think that for you to invest in an area where capital appreciation is going to be high, you must expect from the first year to be out of pocket. You should expect that, and if you are not out of pocket, then you're a unicorn. You're a
Exactly.
unicorn, but if you are out of pocket, you must have done certain calculations, like you must have done your due diligence in a way that you are sure that, okay, I'm expecting this type of capital appreciation in this area based on these factors that I have considered, and maybe at this date I plan on selling, or I don't plan on selling maybe for the next 10 years, and I'll maybe break even in 10 years time, and you need to be okay with that. I always say you really need to be okay with it. If you're someone who's purchasing property for the intention of rental income, then don't look at properties in Sandton, because that's not where you're going to get your rental yields from. Look at properties in areas where you can buy at a like, let's say in the West Rand, a 3-bedroom house for R1 million, or 3-bedroom house for 800,000 rands, that you can rent out for whatever amount that's going to cover all your expenses and give you a return still in your pocket. Then that house in 10 years time will not have the same capital appreciation as a house that was in Sandton that can be sold maybe for twice the amount. Maybe in Sandton it could have been sold for twice the amount, and in West Rand it can only be sold for 5% more than what you actually purchased it for. These are the kind of things that we need to look at when we are investing. Why are we purchasing property? What is the purpose? And it's that education and that property financial education, if you want to put it that way, for us to learn as Black people. Definitely agree with that. Someone asked me a question actually saying, is it better for me to purchase a property that's 700,000 rands or a property that's 1.4 million rand? And I don't know. Hey, like, I don't know how to answer that question. I
That's
really don't. It's,
but can you see what I'm saying
I don't
about
have context.
the education? Exactly. You're lacking the education to realize that your question is without basis. Like,
Mm.
all you're doing is giving us a price range. You're not saying what kind of property it is. You're not saying what kind of returns you expect from the property. Because, like I said, you could easily buy a property in Kailami, for example. So
Yeah.
Kailami's been recording the highest capital appreciation for about the last 2 to 3 years in the north of Joburg.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, yeah, it's probably largely attributed to the development of Waterfall City.
Yeah.
But properties in Kailami are a lot more affordable than properties in Morningside, for example.
Is it? So
Yeah,
today?
they still are. The prices are coming up,
Mm-hmm.
but with let me look at the more uh luxury houses, for example, the luxurious market. So if you're gonna look at a house for 5 million in Kailami and you're gonna look at a house in 5 million for 5 million in Morningside,
Yeah.
you will get better value for money in Kailami. And at this point, I think you'll get more capital appreciation as well. Because Kailami is still developing. Morningside is,
It's
I think,
kind of
from
developed.
exactly. I think
There's
from an
not much you can
appreciation
do with
perspective,
Morningside now.
yeah, you'll still get the capital appreciation, but it's not going to be aggressive anymore.
Yeah. And then in
So I
Kalami,
think
it's
I
more.
lost you there.
Yeah. So I heard you say Allah said that in Santon, Morningside, there's not that much that can be done as compared to the potential developments still around the Midrand area, the Waterfall area, and Kalami itself.
No, exactly. And that's because in Morningside, it's almost like the ceiling has been set.
Mm.
So they've kind of set a ceiling. You know that if you're going to buy a 2-bedroom apartment, the likelihood that you're going to pay under R1 million, slim to none.
You're not going to find one.
Exactly. Whereas in Kailami, because it's still growing, a developer can still go and build something that is within reach. And it's in reach because of the area that it's being built in. Whereas, like I said, Morningside has been there for a long time. You're
Yeah.
not really getting new developments. I mean, you're getting a few, but what happens with the new developments is they will always be overpriced. And they'll overprice because it is Morningside.
Morningside.
Yeah, not necessarily because they're giving a superior product, but because they just like my bricks are better or give me better return if I put them in Morningside as opposed to Kailami.
Yeah. I get you. And I've seen there's been quite a lot of developments in and around like the Midrand Waterfall area as well, coming in at prices that are relatively affordable. And what's your take maybe in terms of the capital appreciation in that area?
So, I mean, capital appreciation is great in that area. I mean, like I said, Waterfall City is, I think at this point, is at about 80%. No, I lie, actually. It's at about 30% developed. So if you look
Yeah.
at the long-term plan for Waterfall City, they still have 70% to go.
Did you say
So,
70% to go?
yeah. So
Sorry, I think I lost
it's
you. Did
fun.
you
What I
say
encourage you guys to do, right?
did you say there's 70% to go? I think I lost you there for a bit.
Yes, definitely. Like 70% to go.
Yeah.
It's about 25 to 30% complete.
Mm.
And what I encourage all of you guys to do is that after this, just go onto YouTube and Google Waterfall City Development.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see the plans that they actually have for Waterfall. Waterfall will probably be in development for the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's that big. And as a result, because it's developing, that appreciation will always be there because it's going to
The
start
demand.
attracting more and more people.
True. I've noticed that there's this other place that they were building recently. They're not done with it. I think they're gonna be start taking in tenants at the end of the year, beginning of next year. In Waterfall. What is it, Munyaka, I think. Um,
Yes.
and yes, I was looking like in and around that area to see that there's actually like a lot of work being done around here. And even when you're driving in Midrand, you see there's a lot of work being done here. And it brings that, not the question, but I think it validates to show that there's a lot of demand in this area for housing, and the demand is what's going to drive up that capital appreciation, and then eventually it will probably plateau and get to a point where it's like Morningside vibes or whatever, but not anytime soon.
Yeah, so that's not going to happen anytime soon. But more so, I know a lot of developers would probably, if they saw this, so are probably going to want to hang me. Uh, I don't really believe in buying in new developments.
High five to that.
And my reason for that is purely that the market has not tested that development. So when you buy in a development, you're paying for the product, you are paying for the finance costs that it costs that developer to build that. So whatever interest they are paying on whoever financed them, you are paying for that. And you are paying for so many other little things that obviously they won't disclose, and they want
And
to
then
put on
there's
the
a
market.
premium. And then there's a
Exactly.
premium. Yeah.
Exactly. Whereas with a property that's been on, let's say they built it 3 years ago, for example,
Mm-hmm.
the market is tested that there have been resales and you can establish the true value. So, which example can I use without getting sued? Oh, it's a tough one. But let me take
It's
Bowen, for
difficult.
example.
Sure.
I'll take Bowen and I'll take a complex like
Sure.
Kikuyu and Waterfall.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I think it was overpriced because what you're going to experience now is that they're not completely 100% done selling those units.
Yeah.
They still have units on their books. But if you go and you try and buy one now, the likelihood that you will pay what the person paid when they bought it is it's unlikely. If anything, you're
Very.
going to get a discount.
Mm.
And that's what I've experienced. It means, and for me, that just goes to show that developers will obviously overprice. And not necessarily, let me not say, let me be fair, let me not say overprice, but they all want to make a return.
Yeah.
And because they want to make a return, when you buy fresh off the books, off plan, you are paying for more than just the property. Whereas the next person that buys from you, they are paying the actual intrinsic value of the place. Like, this is
Mm-hmm.
what the place is worth. The bricks and everything that's keeping
This is
this
it.
place standing. This is where the market pegs it, and I'm not going to stretch over that line.
I always say that also with new developments, that premium that's added is dependent on who the developer is.
Exactly.
Because if the developer is an ex-developer, then the premium might not be so high compared to a developer such as Baldwin, because we know what Baldwin stands for, and we know there's polo fields, we know this, that. You want to be associated with the brand, and then they, as you mentioned, not to say that they are overpricing, but they recognize their brand value and then price it accordingly. Um, I think you're very right about Kikuyu as well. Actually, have a friend who stays there. I don't want to talk about his experience, but I don't want to speak about his experience living there so far. But what I will say is the landlord, the landlord. Okay, I have two friends that stay there. Actually, the landlord for my one friend actually offered to sell the apartment to them. They live in a two-bedroom, and they offered to sell the apartment to them. And when they looked at how much they were offering, and then obviously based on their knowledge, they just went on Property 24 to see what other properties were listed for, and it was actually much less. It was much less than that, and they went through with the purchase. I think they're probably in the transfer phase right now, but like they went through with the purchase because they noticed that, hey, this person is offering me this property at such a bargain. Well, it looks like would be such a bargain compared to what other properties are currently listed for. So I think I see where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, so that's always the struggle that you're gonna have with developers, right? And I know we aren't. Well, let me be fair. Majority of us aren't educated enough to understand the offering that developers give us. Because you must remember, they like to say no transfer costs, etc.,
Yep.
etc. But let's be honest, those transfer costs are factored into whatever price they are selling at.
Because the lawyer still needs to be paid.
Not even just the lawyer, but if you think about it, take Kikuyu again, for example. If you bought off plan, let's say your friend, the landlord, they bought off plan, so they didn't pay transfer duty.
Yeah.
And you must remember, it's when you speak of transfer costs, people always mistake the two.
The
transfer
cost
is
yeah.
Exactly, it's a holistic thing. But within that transfer cost, you must remember that there are attorney's fees and there's actual transfer duty that gets paid to SARS. So in this case, the only thing you're not paying is the SARS fee. So you're not paying the receiver. You're only paying the attorney's fees.
Yeah.
So if you literally sat and thought about it, you'd realize that when you buy in a development, you have paid. Trust me.
Yes. It's just factored into the bond, or you don't have to pay it up front, but you're going to pay for it.
You will keep paying. And that's why I'm a firm believer in buying 3 to 4 year old developments. Not just because of the market getting a clear or establishing a clear price for it, but for, how do I put this now? Sorry.
Sure.
So I believe in buying 3-4 years later, because then at that point, what you've done is that the development has been around for long enough for the cracks to start showing. And when I mean the cracks, I don't just mean the physical cracks. I mean anything that's not right about the development is now apparent, right through from the foundations to the paint jobs to the products that they installed in your apartment. At that point, everything's been used up enough for it to give you a clear indication.
Start showing, really. Yeah.
Exactly. Am I getting value for what I was actually given?
Because you can't come back 3-4 years later and say, hey, you sold me a default products.
No, exactly. But you, coming in as a second entrant into the development, you now have people that tested the market for you. Sure, they might have lost money and all of that stuff, but they've also established how the complex runs, if things run the way they need to be run, the kind of people that are going to live in the complex. They've basically tested your entire investment on your behalf. So when you go into there, you now have a clear indicator of everything you need to know about the place. From the rental yield perspective, from a capital appreciation, from a resale value perspective.
What works and what doesn't.
From a levy perspective as well. Because you must remember, what a lot of us don't know or don't realize is that a levy is not set by a developer. The levy is set by the body corporate.
Hey.
And who is the body corporate? You are. You as an owner are the body corporate. And I know a lot of property investors do not go and sit in on AGMs and all of these things where people are busy making decisions.
Invites, though.
Yeah,
they get the invites, but they choose not to pitch.
Exactly.
So they
and
don't have absolutely no influence over what those levies are going to be.
Exactly. It's like being a board member that doesn't actually go to the meeting, the board meetings, where decisions are going to be taken. You will be held accountable. Yes. Whether you voted or you didn't vote, you will be held accountable as a board member. But now you had no say in what was happening. So if they sat in that AGM and decided that, no, we actually feel like we've got a lot of low-class people that are always making noise, breaking things, let's increase the levy to drive them out. now what you don't realize is that now you've kind of set yourself back, because now you're going to pay a lot of levies. And what that's going to do is that when you now need to resell, other investors are going to come there, they're going to run their numbers, they're going to look at the levy, they're going to look at the rental yield, and they're going to say, no, that's a horrible investment.
They're going to ask you to drop your price.
Exactly. Because for them, it needs to make sense financially. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that if you take away anything from this thing, if you have a property and it's a sectional title and you're an owner there, just make sure you go to the AGMs. Make sure you know what your body corporate is deciding on your behalf.
Because they will decide whether you are there or not.
Exactly. So if you want to protect yourself, protect your investment, you need to understand what drives the market, what will drive people to want to buy in your complex, or what will drive people to want to sell. And those two things need to work together. So it's the same with something basic like being a pet-friendly complex.
Yeah.
A lot of people will argue, no, we don't want pets, they make noise. But if you actually go and look at the stats, pet-friendly complexes sell a lot faster than complexes that aren't pet-friendly.
Because of that, because I think probably it makes sense where you have the freedom to bring your pets if you are a pet owner. And if I'm a pet owner, it's like you're eliminating a portion of the market who are pet owners.
Exactly. And that's why it's imperative that you are there when those rules are being set, when people are taking votes on whether they're increasing the levy, whether they want to install some random water feature that's not going to do anything for you, but it's going to cost you more in levies. It's the small little things that make a property a good investment that we don't take seriously.
Attend your AGM meetings. Attend the AGM meetings.
Attend, and when they ask you to vote on increasing levies and whatnot, hey, have your say. It's your property as much as it is theirs.
And one thing I've noticed when I attended AGM meeting, you'll get, maybe I'm assuming probably a first-time buyer who was attending the meeting would feel a bit shy. I think one thing that you shouldn't feel is pressured to vote for a decision that you clearly can see makes absolutely no sense, because you'd find that you're not the only one who feels that way, you know?
Exactly.
And if you're just sitting down in your little corner and voting, hey, yes, let's increase the levies by 700 Rand, that 700 Rand could go somewhere else. It could go towards your electricity.
Exactly.
It could go towards it could be that money that you're putting into your excess bond. It could be 100%. Absolutely anything. So definitely attend the meetings, voice your opinion. If you feel like they're talking nonsense, voice your opinion the appropriate way.
Exactly. Because I mean, right now, I'll give you an example. I'm sitting with a property on the market that I'm selling.
Yeah.
The property is worth about 2.5, 2.4, but the levy is about 4,500 Rand.
Ooh.
But now, can you see, there's no correlation between the value of the property and your levy. So in such cases,
wait, what?
I kid you not.
That's another bond.
100%. But now, when this thing was being discussed at the AGM, I can guarantee you, the majority of the people that should have been there weren't there. And that's why it could be voted in to say, oh, no, we're fine with the levy at 4,500 Rand. Yes, I mean, it's in Sandton and all, but if I look at my levy statement, can I really say that 4,500 Rand that I'm paying is worth the services that I'm getting?
Probably not.
It probably isn't. And more so, is it a good thing for them to increase that levy for me as an investor? No, probably not. Because when I need to sell, another investor like myself is going to come in there and say, no. I can't pay a levy of 4.5. Pay rates and taxes will probably come up to another 1,500 Rand. get a tenant that wants to pay 15. How much am I out of pocket here?
Yeah, out of pocket, what, 5 grand a month?
Comfortably, easily.
Mm.
And you're not going to get that capital. I mean, yeah, I don't think capital appreciation is that
It's
high
just
that you can
it's
bridge
not that
the.
amazing.
Yeah, you're not going
This
to
is
bridge
not
that
Cape
divide.
Town.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
even there in Cape Town, at some point it's going to boom. I mean, that the whole bubble is going to burst,
yeah.
and
I
the
think we
market.
got. I think we're there actually already.
No, not yet. I still think Cape Town is still seriously overpriced. I
No,
still think
no. I'm saying. I think Cape Town is at the point where, like, you guys, like, where you look at them and you're like, are you guys still in South Africa? Please, like,
exactly.
you are ridiculous now, and I don't think there's an opportunity for future capital growth there at this present moment in time. Maybe, well, based on, at the end of the day, market values are determined by me and you. So, hey, I guess it only time will tell.
100%. And that's the thing. So that's why I said we have the power. We
Mm,
need to make other people realize that when you go and buy a property, whether you're going to live in it or you're investing, you need to understand the factors around it. You need to understand what factors are going to affect your investment
yeah.
and make a decision based on that. And for me, that's where, like I said, we saw a gap in the market for black people to say, no, guys, let us then represent you as black agents that understand your struggle, that understand your lack of information with regard to this property game. And let's let's basically build and teach you how to invest correctly, where
Mm,
to invest, and basically just to grow the wealth, eh? Like for generations to come. You know,
yeah.
whoever owns the land
Is the
is
one.
the rainmaker.
Is the man.
End of
Is the
story.
rainmaker. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, true. Listen, Tondi, Instagram wants to cut us off, but it's been really good. It's been really good session today. I think very valuable advice and information that you've been giving us today. I've personally learned a lot, and going through the comments as well, I can see there's been quite a few people who are really thanking you for all the knowledge that you've been sharing with us today. So I really do appreciate it, and thank you very much again for joining me today.
No, man. Thank you. Eh?
All right, then. Cool. Have a good evening. And yeah, that's it. So if people want to reach you or your agency, actually, if they're interested in purchasing a property in the north, how can they reach you?
So if they just go onto my Instagram, my handle is Tondi Sadiki,
Okay.
one word. So if you just go on there, if you click on my link on my profile, you will have literally all the information you need. You'll have my website, and you
Okay.
will have a contact tab that will actually allow you to physically call me.
Okay, great stuff. I'm also going to put that in the description of this IGTV when I save it onto my Instagram, so that anyone who does need to contact you just wants the link, they can easily just click on the link and go to your page.
100%. And please, like, guys, call me. There's no such thing as a stupid question. If you're looking to buy, if you're
Mhm.
not sure about a rental situation, a sales situation that you feel like is going pear-shaped or shouldn't be running that way, give me a call. I'm there to help. That's how my business grows.
Mhm.
By serving you. We are literally servants, and we're just trying to empower each other.
All right, then cool. What's the name of your company, so that if anyone does see this on any other platform, they can just go directly to your website?
So it's Black Gold Properties. Our website is www.bgprop.co.za.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. Yeah, and thanks again for this evening. Very informational.
100.
And
Thank you. Eh?
enjoy the rest of your evening, brother.
You too. Eh?
All right,
Cheers,
cheers.
cheers.
Okay, thank you guys very much again for joining me this evening. It's been very information packed. Tondi was very, very helpful, and I personally learned a lot. And that's what these sessions are for. These sessions are for me to learn. These sessions are for you to learn. And if you do have any questions for him, hit him up, or you can DM me as well. Feel free to ask me any questions. And if I don't know, I'll always refer you to someone who does know. So if you are someone who does DM me on a regular, you know that I always answer your questions, and I put you into contact with the right people if it's legal related, which are questions that I can't personally answer. Anyway, thank you very much again for being here today. That's it for this evening. And if you didn't catch the whole session, I'm going to save this IGTV. So do check it out on my story and